Okay. So thank you very much, everybody, for joining us this afternoon, evenings in some parts of our world. I'm Ziaur Rahman, and I'm the Director and Secretary General of Asia Development Alliance. I would like to welcome you in this fourth session of Asia Future Forum. The Future Forum process was initiated by uh, four global forums, namely Asia Partnership, Asia Civil Society Partnership for Sustainable Development, Asia um, uh, Development Alliance, and Action for Sustainable Development, Global Call to Action Against Poverty in partnership with the Coalition for UN We Need, C for UN. In 2023, 2024, in the beginning of the Summit of the Future, and we wanted to engage with the large civil society. We wanted to inculcate the grassroots level voices, the citizens' perceptions into the global processes. And later on, the process was reinstated in 2025, 2026, where we actually planned for the future forums. And the future forums are being organized across the globe in various regions. Asia Future Forum initiated in Asian region by the four collaborators and the partners in partnership with C4UN in January, February 2026. The first Asia Future Forum was organized virtually in the sidelines of Asia Pacific Forum on Sustainable Development at the UN ESCAP. And it was organized, it was joined virtually by many, online by many, where we actually introduced the purpose of organizing Asia Future Forum and also introduced the Pact for the Future and its alignment with the sustainable development and what challenges we have been actually facing in uh, uh, seeing the implementation, the smooth implementation of the Pact and the UNAT process. Uh, the second session was organized online, where we were like very happy that we had the Assistant Secretary General from the United Nations, the former Assistant Secretary General of the United Nations, Mr. Professor Jombo Kwame Sundaram, who actually delivered a very well thought uh, keynote speech on peace and uh, sustainable development, also the political economy of the various political and multilateral processes. So it was wonderful session. The third session was organized on 25th of March, and that was organized online, where we actually engaged the civil society leaders and their representatives of the various global and regional forums to talk about how they actually contribute to these processes. And we initiated and we kicked off the oral and written contribution towards the regional statement on the future forum. Uh, and then now today we are holding the final and the fourth session. We are very, very happy that for this session, uh, uh, we will be joined by Mr. Shombi Sharp, the Deputy Executive Secretary of the UN ESCAP, who will be delivering keynote speech. And we are also very happy that we will be joined by Mr. Anselmo Lee, the Ambassador of Peace, Democracy, and Human Rights. Formerly, he was representing, and he is, I think, representing APSD, but very recently he has been appointed as the ambassador to Republic of Korea on peace, democracy, and human rights. He's from civil society, very well-known advocate of human rights and democracy and peace. So both of them will be delivering welcome and keynote speeches today. And then we will try to engage all of you in the conversation to contribute into the proposed statement that at the later stage we will be submitting to UNESCAP as well as to uh, the Global Future Forum that is expected to be organized in the sidelines of the summit of the future review process in 2028. So this is all what we have been doing today. Without any further ado, I would like to invite first our mentor, particularly my mentor, Anselmo Lee, who is currently the ambassador to the Republic of Korea on peace, democracy, and human rights, to give us the opening remarks for this fourth session of the Asia Future Forum. Over to you, Anselmo.
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, my colleague. I am first time making official remark as an ambassador for human rights, peace, and democracy, which is very new to many of you. Although we are very familiar with the content, thematic mandate, so I'm trying to address as a formal speech. I hope you don't mind, because I want to use this speech to influence Korean government. Okay, so double purpose. Distinguished delegates, colleagues from civil society, representative of governments and international organizations, dear friends. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It is a great honor for me to join Asia Futures Forum as I represent Government of Republic of Korea as newly appointed Ambassador for Human Rights, Peace, and Democracy. In addition to the regional coordinator of APSD, I extend my sincere congratulations to all organizers, partners, and participants who have made this timely gathering possible. We meet at historical moment. Across the world, we are witnessing growing geopolitical tensions and conflict, democratic backsliding, widening inequality, climate crisis, digital disruption, and deepening mistrust within and among societies and nations in Asia and across the world. At the same time, humanity is also experiencing unprecedented interconnectedness and shared vulnerability. In this context, the adoption of Pact for the Future in 2024 represents more than another UN outcome document. It is a collective commitment to renew multilateralism, strengthen international solidarity, and place human dignity at the center of global governance. For Asia, this agenda carries particular importance. Our region is dynamic and innovative, yet it also faces profound challenges: armed conflicts, shrinking civic space, climate disasters, digital divide, youth unemployment, forced migration, and persistent inequalities. This Pact for the Future challenges us not only to respond to crises, but also to reimagine the future we want to build together. Civil society has a critical role in this process. Civil society organizations, grassroots movements, faith communities, youth networks, women's organizations, trade unions, indigenous peoples and academics and local communities are not merely stakeholders. They are architects of democratic resilience, social solidarity, and transformative change. The future cannot be negotiated only by state. It also must be shaped by peoples and civil society. This is why meaningful participation, transparency, accountability, and protection of civic space are essential for implementing Pact for the Future. The Republic of Korea's own democratic journey reminds us that democracy, peace, human rights are never given permanently. They must be defended, renewed, and deepened continuously through citizen participation and international solidarity. The recent experience of peaceful civic mobilization, known by many as a light revolution in December 2024, demonstrate once again the power of nonviolent demonstrative democratic action and the universal aspiration for dignity, justice, and accountable governance. As ambassador of human rights, peace, democracy, I believe the Korea can contribute more to global public diplomacy for democracy, peace building, digital democracy, and human rights-based global governance. And through APSD and broader regional partnerships, we will continue to working to ensure that voices of the Asian civil society are fully reflected in the global decision-making processes, including follow-up to the Pact for the Future, including global digital compact and the creation on future generation. Finally, let us remember the future is not something that simply arrives. The future is something we build together. May this forum become a platform for dialogue, solidarity, and concrete action towards a more peaceful, democratic, inclusive, and sustainable Asia and world. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much indeed. Let us put our hands together digitally to welcome the opening remarks of the ambassador, uh, Anselmo Lee. The only difference that I see of years of uh, like friendship with Anselmo, that he has been actually uh, reading the written statement for the first time ever, being the representative of Republic of Korea. But I haven't seen any difference in thoughts, the expressions that he made, and the contributions that he has been actually uh, given to us, and the way forward. That is one of the purpose of our today's future forum. He has already set the guidelines for our way forward. So thank you very much, Ambassador. Now, moving towards a little detail about what we did and what is our regional statement that we have actually prepared based on the contributions from our verbal and written contributions from the civil society. I would like to invite Jabilson, one of our key partner in holding this future forum on behalf of Coalition for UN We Need C for UN. He is the research coordination consultant on behalf of C for UN. So over to you, Jabilson.
Thanks, yeah. Let me share my screen. Okay, I hope all of you can see my screen right now.
Yeah.
So thank you, Sia, and thank you everyone for joining. So I'll be giving you a brief overview on the regional statement. So as you all may know, the regional statement is the outcome document of the Asia Futures Forum Dialogue Series, which, as Sia said, we have been organizing since February of this year. And we have organized 4 webinars and consultations in total. And the regional statement covers the views and expectations of Asian civil society on the Pact, UN80, future of multilateralism. Within the future of multilateralism, we have collected dedicated inputs on the expectations for the next SG and also on the post-2030 development agenda. The regional statement will be delivered at the Global Futures Forum, and also, as he has said, will also be shared with ESCAP and will also guide some of our advocacy going forward. And it will also feed into the co-creation of the People's Framework for review of the Pact in 2028. And just to give some context here, we have been getting written and oral inputs. And written inputs since mid-March, we received over 40 contributions from civil society across Asia. Thanks to everyone who contributed to the in written format. And oral consultations, we organized on 15th of April. We had 6 breakout groups having dedicated discussions on all chapters of the Pact, UN80, Future of Multilateralism. Thanks to all the facilitators who facilitated these consultations and also those who contributed. And the statement, I shared it by email before the session, is 22 pages long. It was consolidated and drafted by our ambassador Anselmo and also the C4UN team who are behind the screens right now, but I'm representing on their behalf. And it will be finalized this week. We have few inputs that we need from civil society, which we'll be doing after the keynote by Mr. Shombi Sharp today. And post that, we'll be finalizing the regional statement. So let me get into some of the details of the statement. In the interest of time, I'll skip some of the slides, but all of the information is in the statement shared, and we'll also be sharing this PowerPoint. So we gathered inputs on the challenges on Pact implementation and also reflections on UNAT. These are some of the views that we got. This was already discussed in one of the sessions, so I'll not go into the details here. And these are some of the strategies, mostly from the oral inputs that we organized in April to strengthen civil society engagement in Pact implementation. And the key messages from Asia. So I'll go in detail here. So the key messages are that the implementation of the Pact should prioritize real outcomes for people and communities, and the SDG financing gap must be closed, and civic space and stakeholder participation is essential for effective multilateralism, and the UN should have stronger partnerships and regional engagement in Asia. This includes ESCAP, engagement with regional cooperation mechanisms such as ASEAN, SARC. And the last message is that the SG selection, which is currently ongoing, as you all may know, should be transparent and inclusive. And now to the next slide. So we got some detailed inputs on what are the expectations from Asian civil society for the next SG. So we got inputs, we have grouped it into different themes on leadership, reform, accountability, institutional changes, and digital. On leadership, the Asian civil society expect the SG to be a trusted global convener, to act with transparency and serve as an advocate for the poor, marginal, and vulnerable people, and for the SG to deliver accountable, inclusive, and measurable reform within 3 years of taking office, which is 2030. By 2030, Asian civil society is expecting meaningful reform of the UN, and to make accountability as an organizing principle of the UN, and also to hold member states to account on their commitments. And on the institutional front, Asian civil society are expecting the SG to appoint a special envoy for children in street situations, to operationalize Action 54 of the Pact on complex global shocks, and also to propose the establishment of a UN Parliamentary Assembly. And on the digital front, the SG should champion the principle of algorithmic stewardship, protect human cognitive liberty, and also raise awareness on cyber crimes. We'll be doing some more consultations on this during the interactive segment. And now on the post-2030 development agenda, again, we got some detailed, very substantive input from civil society. So I want to add a disclaimer here that these are new proposals on top of the existing sustainable development goals. So you may not see the entire list here because these are new ones. For example, the current SDGs has a target on social protection systems, but Asian civil society are asking for a binding universal commitment on social protection flows by 2040. And on digital space, Asian civil society are expecting universal and democratic digital public infrastructure. The current SDGs has one target on internet access, but a lot has changed since 2015. So there is an appetite for more targets and specific goals in the next 2030 agenda. And on environment, again, these are new ones. So there needs to be universal access to decipherable and verifiable environmental intelligence, in addition to whatever is existing in the current goals. And some of the other ones are to strengthen trust in governance systems, not just at the national level, but also at the global level. This, the strengthening trust part has come through in many questions that we got inputs from civil society. So there is good reason that this needs to be included in the next development agenda to establish a standing global protection mechanism by 2035 and to establish a UN envoy on future generations. So the last one, the future generations is also a commitment in the pact, but it has not been implemented yet. So I think it is understandable that civil society are expecting this, are continuing to advocate for this. So these are some of the new proposals, and some of the key actions and recommendations that we got through these consultations are listed here. I'll not go into each of those because, again, we'll be discussing some of these during the interactive segment. But briefly, the priority actions to reform are the global financial architecture to strengthen Asia's representation in global decision making, IMF, World Bank, Security Council, etc., and to advance multi-level governance. And some of the key recommendations are to establish an Asia-Pacific Pact follow-up platform, to integrate Pact commitments in national SDG frameworks, and to ensure protected civil space. So these are some of the actions and recommendations that came through the consultations. And this is my last slide. We also got inputs on what is Asian civil society expecting on the future of multilateralism. So I have put a small image here on the principles that Asian civil society are expecting for the UN to be accountable, more networked, coordinated, participatory, empowering, etc. So that is a brief overview of the consultations that have happened until now and what is in the regional statement as well. And during the interactive segment, we'll be discussing on some of these themes again, where you can provide inputs, vote on some of the recommendations, etc. And thank you again to all those who contributed in written format and also with your oral inputs. With that, I give it back to Sia. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much indeed, Jebel Singh, for giving us the outlines of our proposed regional statement and the contributions made by our civil society at large from the Asia and Pacific. This is not the last like effort that we are doing. We still have to continue around these regional statements. I don't know, we will have to discuss the deadline in coming days, when we know that we have to present that in the Global Future Forum, but still we have time to receive your contributions. You can share in your in chat today. You can also write down at later stage to us. Jabilson may be sharing the email with us to give to receive the inputs. So thank you, Jabilson, and we will have some time while we will be discussing in the later half of this session. Now, this is my immense pleasure and privilege to welcome and to request Mr. Shombi Sharp, the Executive Secretary of the UN ESCAP for Asia and Pacific, to deliver us the keynote speech for today's session. Over to you, Mr. Shombi.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I had a last-minute laptop technology challenge, so connecting on the phone. I hope I'm audible, visible, everything is okay. A great honor and pleasure to join you on behalf of ESCAP. I would just issue a small clarification. I'm the Deputy Executive Secretary, so I don't want my to misrepresent myself. But thank you, really, truly. It's an honor to be part of this fourth, and I understand last of the Asia Futures Forum dialogues for this series of the series for this year. Really, truly an important regional platform to bring people together, bring voices together, to be grounded in lived realities of people as decision makers are crafting policies. And of course, we in the United Nations and ESCAP in particular work with our member states and work with civil society organizations to be sure that we try to help close the gap between policies and priorities of people. Thanks to all of the organizers. I won't read through the list, but I think this is really a fantastic, excellent collection of leading civil society organizations and platforms bringing this together. So I think, and it's an honor to join Ambassador Lee as well, and appreciated his comments for the opening. And I think just to begin by stating a bit the obvious, I guess, which is we live in a very fragmented world. We live in a world that is increasingly suddenly facing rising barriers to connectivity rather than declining barriers, which we had been enjoying for many decades before. Certainly, I think since the beginning, the formation of the United Nations, for example. We see a range of different challenges and crises. The Sustainable Development Goals globally are very much off track. And Asia and Pacific in particular also is not on track to fully achieve any of the SDGs by 2030. Only about 11% of our measurable targets are on track, as well as facing the sharp impacts of crises and conflicts rather, and the ongoing growing challenges of climate change. While our region generates roughly half of the world's global GDP, this is really coming under significant stress, and achievements are being, that momentum is being eroded by escalating geopolitical conflicts as well. We look at impacts across the spectrum. Debt and ODA fiscal space is evaporating quickly. Our annual SDG financing gap, our annual SDG reports that ESCAP issues, has identified that the region's financing gap for the SDGs is surging to about $1.5 trillion already. Member states are forced to borrow at high costs of capital, while official development assistance, ODA, and climate finance is either falling or not meeting commitments that have been made. Trade and transportation and flows of people and goods facing more and more barriers. And then finally, the advent of AI, digital connectivity and AI, is introducing brand new opportunities as well as brand new challenges as well in terms of exacerbating digital divides and inequalities. So I think, these are extremely important challenges. One underlying challenge that has also emerged in the recent years, actually months and years, greater pressure than ever before on the very concept of multilateralism. So the very concept of people coming together around collective solutions to common challenges, which has been flourishing again since for 80 plus years and since the beginning of the United Nations and other multilateral platforms, is now facing more challenges than ever before. And so much of global relations have shifted towards bilateral relations and great power relations and these sorts of things, and really tearing down much of the foundations for advancement that have been built so caringly over all these years. So I think this conversation is incredibly important because civil society plays a very important role in strengthening multilateralism as well. Now, Asia and Pacific, I think the region faces some a paradox, that is that Asia Pacific, we are on the one hand the undisputed sort of engine of global growth. Something like 60% of GDP growth is coming from this region. A lot of innovation happening, a lot of very, very positive poverty reduction and other advancements being made. We also have the world's greatest youth population, 60% of the global youth population, which I like to say is more young minds to tap for solutions than any region has ever had before in history. So these are a lot of reasons to be optimistic. We have a great amount of diversity across the region. We range countries, member states range from small island developing states and nations with less than 100,000 populations to the largest countries in the world, to high-income countries with very high GDP per capita, to landlocked countries, a number of landlocked countries, and other typologies. So really every sort of manner of diversity one can think of culturally and economically and so on can be found here in Asia and Pacific. Now, this region is facing also a particularly acute challenge emerging from the conflict in the Middle East, the Strait of Hormuz. As we know, while a very important 1/5 of global oil and LNG supply is running through the Strait of Hormuz, Asian Pacific is extremely vulnerable, much more than other regions. 90% of that 20%, 90% of what we're receiving destined for Asia is coming through that Strait of Hormuz. So we are seeing already hardship growing for people, for businesses, especially small and medium enterprises as well. And, generally speaking, rule of thumb, a 10% increase in the price of oil can drive global inflation by 0.1 or 0.2%. And this could possibly, we estimate, drive inflation in this region up to well over a half to even almost 1.5 percentage points, which is very significant and would have very negative impacts, especially on the poorest. We've also seen this crisis driving increased demand for coal, delaying coal power phase outs, and as well. We hope that it will drive greater interest and uptake in renewable energy, but that is not always the case. So this region delivering more than 40% of global GDP as well, and yet the contradictions are such that we still have about 700 million people living in slum environments. Urbanization is soaring. And yet over 65% of urban workers are surviving in the informal economy. That number is higher in some countries as well. Over 80% of young people and older people are informally employed also. And affordable housing and access to basic services continues to increase as a challenge with this urbanization. In terms of technology, we have what we call a tech trap. While 96% of people in Asia and Pacific are living in areas covered by mobile broadband networks, which is a very, very important advancement, only 1/3 are sort of productively using internet services to the full potential, and something like 40% still lack basic digital skills. So connection does not automatically mean inclusion. That's an important point as well. And again, as I mentioned, while our region generates 55%, over half of global greenhouse gases, we are also home to 6 of the 10 most climate vulnerable countries on Earth as well. So we see the interplay and this paradox. So in other words, to put it in human terms, you can contrast in our region a tech executive in a high-income country like Korea. We have had the ambassador speaking, or Singapore or other countries. Contrast that with an informal settlement worker in one of the lower income countries or lower middle income, or within countries we have income inequalities very significantly as well. Now, so what are we doing about all of this? And this is where, again, my appeal to all of you and appreciation for your support to multilateralism is to work with us on helping build a UN that's better fit for purpose through the UN 80 process, but not to give up on multilateralism. This is a very important point. I think it was an old former US Secretary of State, Madeleine Albright, who once said that if you didn't have the United Nations, you would have to invent it again anyway. So let's not make that mistake of tearing down multilateralism and then finding we just need to build it back up again. Rather, let's work to improve and enhance what we do have. And that's where the UN 80 process is not we have a lot to celebrate in terms of important achievements, absolutely. And what our staff and our partners like you are achieving across the world, a lot to celebrate. But this UN 80 is not about, a birthday party, so to speak. It's really about delivering the organization that can take us forward to 2030 and beyond in partnership. And as the Secretary General Antonio Guterres has said, of course, we cannot expect an organization that was built for our grandparents to deliver a future for our grandchildren. So a positive, constructive, forward-looking UN80 is key to that. The Pact for the Future really laid the groundwork for UN80, the 5 pillars of the Pact for the Future. I won't go into those details now. But at ESCAP, we are working with you, with other partners across these priority streams. For example, you look at the Global Digital Compact, which is about finally bringing digital innovation and AI and other platforms under a sort of a governance framework at the global level, and bringing together some of the sharpest minds, experts, to help us think through that. Here in the Asia Pacific level, ESCAP is very much engaged with member states, with partners, to help translate that through the action plan on the Asia Pacific Information Superhighway Initiative through 2030, which is really helping the region benefit from the greatest possible new technological advances, connectivity for all, accessible digital infrastructure for all, and AI applications as well. I would note, of course, again, AI brings opportunities and challenges. One of the big downsides is the growth of data centers is driving demand for energy and water consumption significantly, something like 15% every single year, anticipated through 2030. We've seen a number of technology companies jettisoning their commitments on climate action, which is extremely concerning. So we need to help ensure that this digital revolution and AI is not coming at a cost and expense to our climate action, which is so very critical. Here in Asia and Pacific, we also have a demographic dividend, as I mentioned, and also a very significant demographic divide. So not only do we have a lot of young people to tap for ideas, we also have a lot of older people. Almost 1 billion people are expected to be over the age of 65 by 2050. And therefore, the silver economy comes into great importance. And I say this not only because I myself have gray or silver hair, but rather that this is increasingly important for countries to tap the economic drivers of older populations, and of course to prepare social safety nets and other social services for elderly people, older generations as well. And the ESCAP, we just had our annual commission session, which was looking at precisely how to work, how member states can come together to better prepare for aging societies and leaving no one behind. Advancing a society for all ages was the sort of the title, the theme study of that. Throughout all of this is running, of course, important elements of inclusion, gender equality, women's empowerment, youth engagement, jobs for young people. All of these issues are incredibly important. Disability inclusion also, so that our countries can really leverage the full human resource capacity that we have as countries and people. So I think let me now just, I believe time is a bit short. I just wanted to really re-emphasize how vitally important is the role of civil societies. I began my career, for example, working with CARE International, working for an international NGO in that space. That's how I began my journey into international development. So far beyond volunteers or implementers, civil society really, truly are important drivers of what we are doing, of the narrative, of the policy space, and of helping ensure accountability of governments, of intergovernmental organizations, is really held, and ensuring that data is available and accessible to make those policy decisions. We at ESCAP are working with civil society organizations in so many ways, not only just, for example, our engagement here today, but really at the practical level, helping work with civil society to turn waste into local livelihoods. helping to make urban climate action more people-centered, helping to ensure that everyone is accounted in civil registration and vital statistics. I have many examples I can list. I don't want to take time doing that, but just really ensuring that inclusion and leaving no one behind is at the core of everything that we do on the ground, as well as at the highest level policy space and dialogue. For example, we walk the talk, so to speak, in the Asia Pacific Forum on Sustainable Development, our annual yearly platform where we help bring together civil society and member states really to roll up the sleeves, a very dynamic and high energy environment that then takes our region's priorities and visions to New York for the high level political forum. There we have the youth forum during the APFSD, as well as the citizen-led forum. We have sub-regional SDG forums in each of the 5 sub-regions of our Asia Pacific, which also dive more deeply in terms of how we can partner with civil society as well. So I think let me just conclude there. I may have taken too much time. Apologies if so, but I just want to really reiterate the points that you have made so far in terms of your regional statement. I couldn't agree more. And it's very important that the next Secretary General is informed by the views of civil society here in Asia Pacific. There's no more important place, no more important time to distill those views and those priorities than right here, right now in Asia and Pacific. And it will be so helpful as the new Secretary General is elected and takes over the mantle towards the end of this year. I think we are very optimistic. Asia Pacific faces so many challenges, but really I think has more drivers of optimism and excitement as we look at 2030 and beyond 2030, as was always mentioned, that's very, very important as well. So let me stop there and thank you again very much for the privilege to join you, to share these thoughts. And we very much look forward to the ongoing collaboration, of course, after this discussion as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Shombi Sharp, the Deputy Executive Secretary for the ESCAP for Asia and Pacific. What a wonderful talk. And when a champion from the background of civil society, no matter what position sitting today, speaks, it really represents what actually the hearts and minds of civil society would want to listen. Thank you for emphasizing on the multilateralism and then this realizing that there is a financing gap in achieving the SDGs in the region, and then also sharing the potential of Asia and Pacific and how we can actually tap those and bank on those potentials. So thank you very much indeed. Ladies and gentlemen, we will have some time to, few minutes rather, to ask Mr. Shombi the questions. I see a couple of questions in the chat. I don't know, Mr. Shombi, if you have already gone through them. Should you want me to read those questions? And maybe in the meanwhile, if a couple of other would like to ask, they can also write here or maybe raise their hands.
Please do, yeah. Since I'm actually now unexpectedly on the phone, I'm not. It's a little bit harder to see questions in the chat, so I've not been able to have a look.
Okay, so I have seen a couple of points over here. I think the one is from Aranayam Kashayab, if I'm pronouncing the name well. Thank you for the insightful talk. I wanted to ask, how can we ensure that the global commitments actually reach local communities in practical ways? The question is about the localization. The second question is from Himachandra Basapa. I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing your name, Hemachandra, well, but he wants the Ambassador Sharp. How do we bring dialogue and peace between US and Iran in these West Asian states? The question is too long, but he's talking about the peace, and he want that how we can actually play our role actually in this peace process. And the final one is from Dela Leonor. And I believe that so much policy has been made, but we are far-fetched on the implementation. How do we make sure person with disabilities rights be served? How can we help as advocates? So first is on localization, the second is on peace, and the third is on the inclusion, particularly the people living with disabilities. Over to you, Mr. Shombi.
Okay, thank you very much, and to the colleagues for those great questions. I think the perhaps just starting with the first one, localization. I think this is where this is the spirit of the SDGs. That it is the SDGs, of course, were not at all let's say a commitment of the United Nations only as an institution, but actually a commitment of member states, of governments to their people, and with the view of civil society and communities very much as an important actor and player in shaping those commitments in the first place, in helping to implement those commitments, especially on the ground, and in helping to hold member states, governments, and the UN institution accountable, not just the UN, but other international organizations, accountable for delivering on those commitments. So it's really, it was a member state owns undertaking, the SDGs 2030. And I think that is really going to be the core of what we look forward to beyond 2030 as well. How to localize, this has been, this is what we are trying to do sort of every day. Right? And through our partnerships, by bringing civil society into the highest level conversations, and understanding that civil society is uniquely positioned to bring those messages to the local communities, right? So if you want to, sort of go fast in something, as they say, you just go with one. If you want to go far, deep, and wide, then you go together, and that's where civil society plays a key role. We see that in delivery of everything from, for example, the COVID response. I could give just an example of my experience in India. I was previously the head of the United Nations in India, and there you saw a fantastic collaboration around bringing vaccines and other needed services to really, the entire population, to remote communities, remote villages, rural areas, mountainous areas, urban areas, through a collaboration of the most cutting-edge digital solutions, CoVIN, UVIN platforms, digital solutions, of course, the pharmaceutical, the vaccines were there, and then and ministries and state services, but then ultimately working with community groups, ASHA workers, community workers going door to door, and other civil society groups there at the community level, to be sure that people are aware of the needs that they have, and that they can gain access to needed vaccines and others. So it was really a multi-stage chain of reactions that really makes it work. So localization is key, absolutely, because we know, and not just localization in terms of civil society, but I would say also localization in terms of, private sector, right? Because we know that the private sector, businesses, micro, small, medium enterprises, large enterprises, are actually, at the end of the day, doing the bulk of the hiring, doing the bulk of the investing in technologies and climate smart and green technologies as well. So I think we also have to localize in terms of integrating sustainability and inclusion into business practices. That's a key. Let me take the second question in terms of peace between US and Iran. Here, I'd love to give you an insightful and thoughtful response. I would have to just caveat that our ESCAP, our mandate it's Economic and Social Commission for Asia and Pacific. So we are not mandated with these more political issues. We have DPPA in the UN, they handle the political issues. So I'm not really mandated to speak more deeply on that one, but just simply to say that, of course, peace and security and development and human rights are all interlinked. Again, these are the interlinked mandates of the UN and of SDGs. So without development, you can't have peace. Without peace, you can't have development. The United Nations, the Secretary General has been offering the good offices of the UN to try and help broker peace in that conflict. The Secretary General has convened an ongoing task force that has been looking at trying to propose solutions, practical solutions to unblock the Strait of Hormuz, a bit like we managed for a while with the Black Sea Grain Initiative during the related to the Ukraine conflict, so that humanitarian food could get through and to reduce the burden on poorer countries and people in terms of food, fuel, fertilizers, costs, and things like that. That's something the UN is working very, very hard on at this very moment. I can tell you there's a whole lot of effort being put into that. But many elements in this particular moment are outside of our influence and control, but we make every effort to try and help bring together a peaceful solution. That's just not in my area of particular mandate. Finally, disability inclusion. I think disability inclusion is something we take extremely serious. And we have, of course, the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. We have our internal UN commitments on disability as well. And we apply that both very seriously internally in terms of our own working environment to be disability inclusive, as well as working with our partners and trying to promote policy and practice around disability inclusion. And I think, just from my experience, one of the most important elements there is visibility, because in many countries where disability inclusion is not mainstreamed, when you don't have universal design in infrastructure, built infrastructure, access, quite often the issue of disability, people may have the wrong impression that disability doesn't exist or at scale if it's not so visible, right? So we work very hard with persons with disability groups and organizations and people together to really bring the issue front and center in terms of the broader population's conscience. And I myself have had amazing experiences, some of the best experiences in my career, working with disability organizations, experts, and all these things. And just on a personal aside, maybe the most fun I've ever had was playing wheelchair basketball with the Indian national wheelchair basketball team as well. Everybody in chairs and nobody being this, that, or the other, but just being basketball players, having an amazing, wonderful time, and really demonstrating the incredible skill and the excitement of that particular sport, wheelchair basketball, but just amplifying that in all aspects of society. And I think that universal design in services, built environment is an incredibly important path towards that. And just on numbers, right? Disability inclusion, according to, I may have my numbers, I may not be remembering exactly, but I think many countries, estimate sort of the number of persons with disabilities in a population very low. I think in India that was the case, like 2.5%, 3% or something. And we know on the basis of WHO and other estimates globally, and no country would be really an exception to that, that persons with disability in a really a modern understanding is going to be much more, many times greater than that, maybe 5 to, maybe 15%, something. I mean, this is really a mainstream issue. So it's an issue about human rights, first and foremost. Every single person should have full access, full rights, full ability to be everything that they can be. It's also an issue of major scale, and countries will not achieve SDGs and will not achieve their aspirations if they don't build in full disability inclusion into every policy as well. So again, sorry if that was a bit long, but thank you again for the questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shombi. When you were talking about the disability inclusion, I was looking at the screen and I see Mr. Abid Lashari, who has been awarded as the Presidential Award for his services in Pakistan. He represents the National Disability Forum. He's also part of Pakistan Development Alliance, and we are really proud of his services. And it also connects us with the localization, the examples that you quoted from India. There are several other examples from Pakistan and other countries of Asia. So thank you for your responses. We have so many questions actually for you and also for the Ambassador Lee. So for Ambassador Lee, what I would suggest is that I guess he will be staying with us until the end. So maybe I think we can just take a chance to his responses at the end of our session. But for Mr. Shombi, I would actually ask my two colleagues, and one I would read the question from Dr. Ayata Vishwakarma from Nepal. So these three questions. Abid, sorry, I would not be taking your hands this time because we are really running short of time. So I would request Jagriti Chaudhary and Wasim Raza. Jagriti first, please go quickly, like in 10 seconds. Jagriti, are you with us? So Jagriti's 10 seconds gone. Wasim, can you just ask the question quickly?
Yes, thank you. Thank you once again. I love to listen, Mr. Sharp. My question is that what do you have something offered, especially in terms of ESCAP initiative, in terms of climate change? We are currently, even now, today, I am experiencing a heat wave in Sakkar. So, what is offering of escape as far as for Pakistan or Asia concerned? Your initiatives are there. Anything which is practical and any kind of practical experience do you have which will create a change on the ground purely for the public? Thank you very much.
Thanks, Wasim. The question from Dr. Ayata Vishwakarma, Ambassador Sharp, in South Asian countries, the most marginalized people like Dalits need social accountability tools to increase access to the social protection. How can we empower them and implement the social accountability tools for the cause of marginalized communities? So these two quick questions for Mr. Sharp.
Okay, thank you for that. I think the on the first question, climate change. I think this, and I'm very mindful of, and again, I know, I mean, just my most recent experience, again, having come in India until I joined ESCAP here and based in Thailand, but covering the whole of Asia and Pacific, 52 member states since December. But I'm obviously still a little bit focused on India, and I know that India and parts of South Asia are going through a particular heat crisis, at the moment. incredibly hot temperatures, and this is really having major impacts on people, again, especially exacerbating inequalities. So people who don't have access to cleaning, to cooling, who don't, who are working out in the exposed environments, construction workers, informal sector workers, you name it, are really paying the highest price. And more generally speaking, the whatever terminology you prefer, global south or developing countries, are paying the highest price for a problem that they did not create, right? So it's really an issue of climate justice as well. And that's where the financing issue also comes into such sharp relief. So the loss and damage fund is very important, but it's not been, it has not been sufficiently funded to account for the fact that, to account for climate justice, basically. We in ESCAP, these issues of climate are kind of, I would say, threaded through a lot of our work. In particular, we do have a specific, I would say, 2 specific divisions really focused on this. Maybe 3 actually, but we have an energy division, and one of the core priorities of our energy division is working with member states, with countries, with the private sector to accelerate green transition towards renewable energy economies, low carbon and renewable energy economies. And we know that obviously that brings the little bit slower cause and effect benefit of reducing climate emissions. At the same time, it creates much faster immediate benefits, really, in terms of lower air pollution, in terms of health impacts for people, again, especially marginalized populations. And then finally, it also is a way to achieve greater economic growth. Green economy creates 3 times more jobs, and these tend to be much more decent jobs as well for people. So we're working on that. We also do have an environment and development division that is focused on helping governments to implement policies addressing the triple planetary crisis. We've crafted jointly a regional program of action on climate change, biodiversity, and pollution, alongside strengthening regional cooperation around the oceans and sustainable urbanization also. Urban resilience and SDG localization at the city level is also an important part of that. Introducing smart city initiatives, for example, using technology to reduce the impact of climate at the city level is quite important. But then there are a lot of other areas that we're looking at. We look in the social development side, at the climate implications on social safety nets and social development, working with all of the sub-regional organizations. I think it was mentioned already, ASEAN in this conversation. We work with ASEAN, we work with BIMSTEC, we work with all of the PIFs in the Pacific, all of the important regional intergovernmental organizations too. So I could keep going on, but it's really cutting climate action and climate justice is cutting throughout, as well as the data. We work very closely with governments and other partners to bring forward the data that tells us what is the real picture, so that we really understand the crisis that we're in and how to get out of it. In terms of social accountability, how to empower, here I think that this is the in South Asia, but not only South Asia. Obviously, all of our subregions are facing challenges around different social dimensions of exclusion. So inclusion is at the core, and really our mantra is leaving no one behind. So what we do, for example, is we work with governments leveraging the SDG process, leveraging the voluntary national review process, which is working with governments to really unpack what's happening in terms of SDGs, not at aggregate numbers, but according to vulnerable groups. And there we have ESCAP, for example, has elaborated a very specific methodology, leaving no one behind methodology, that we offer to governments, and a number of governments have taken us up on this, to really disaggregate the data down to subgroups to understand which of the population are further behind and which SDGs, and then use that to drive policy engagement and access to services for those groups as well. So I would just leave that as one example. There are many others, but thank you for the questions. Very important questions.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Shombi Sharp, for wonderful and engaging conversation on the topics and responding to the questions. And we really appreciate that you joined by your mobile, having a little bit of technical challenges, but still the session went so smooth and engaging. And I hope that the audience today, the participants today would be very happy of having you. And we are also very happy to have you in our session today. Thank you very much.